दिन ढले जहां रात पास हो, जिंदगी की लौ ऊंची कर चलो, याद आए घर कभी दिल उदास हो, मेरी आवाज ही पहचान है, घर याद रहे. So I think these are such wonderful lines. Learning that I have had over time is that behind everything lies politics. जो चला गया उसे भूल जा, वो ना सुन सकेगा तेरी सदा, है ना. तो अब वाजपेयी जी तो चले गए. So you have to look at what the reality is today. And the reality of today is that this government is not particularly tolerant of any criticism. In fact, what they define as criticism is also different. So effectively, this becomes like if you're not praising us, it is criticism. Go after the media like this is self-defeating. I praise this government, say for its handling of the coronavirus crisis in India. I think the farm bills are very good. This is what India's farming sector needed. In India right now, with Arnab Goswami, it's like Saiya bhai ko twal ab darta hai, right? Because the government is behind my back. अब देखिए Arnab के ऊपर भी state government से खतरा आया तो state government अभी help कर रही है. Because if I carried on, then you are looking at okay 2 साल और 3 साल और फिर रिटायर हो जाओ. हमारे को तो golf खेलनी भी नहीं आती, रिटायर होके क्या करेंगे? वो अफसाना जिसे अंजाम तक लाना ना हो मुमकिन, उसे खूबसूरत मोड़ देकर छोड़ना बेहतर. चलो एक बार फिर से अजनबी बन जाएं हम दोनों. ये हमराही का गाना था. 60s की फिल्म थी, वक्त से बहुत पहले की.
So to begin with, I think what we all have known Shekhar Gupta till now has been someone who's been a journalist, political journalist, print editor-in-chief, now an entrepreneur. So you have grabbed most of the hats you wanted to. I have to ask you, in your book have mentioned very candidly or naively to say that you didn't know what political journalism is. You just started like a cub reporter, if I may use that term, and you just got your journey through the people you met in on field. You were mostly into features and all. So can you just tell us or briefly take us through your journey, how Shekhar Gupta evolved as a journalist or eventually became a journalist?
Well, first of all, the comment you're talking about, that's because for a long time, I either worked on a larger beat, which was like, say, the Northeast. Now, Northeast had politics, it had security issues, it had economy, it had ethnicity, many things, but not party politics. And then I worked for India Today for 12 years, where you work from story to story. So you did major stories, but you also wrote cover stories on cricket and Olympics, but at the same time on politics. So there was no specialization in politics. So that came later when I became friends, fortunately, one of those good things that happened to me in my life with S.P. Singh, late S.P. Singh, unfortunately, who was a leading Hindi journalist and who founded Aaj Tak, in fact. So, so that is the reference there. The rest is, I am from the cadre of generalist journalists, so non-specialized. Now you might say, but you write about this subject a lot, you write about that subject a lot. Yes, there are subjects that you get more used to or that you get more familiar with. And there are subjects that you don't get familiar with. For example, if you ask me to write about culture or classical music, I will really struggle. I won't be able to, so I will not do it. It will be a case of Kawwa chala hans ki chaal, as we say in Hindi, right? But other range develops because you are a generalist. So you can write about defense and security, foreign affairs, they are linked, and then politics. And the learning that I have had over time is that behind everything lies politics.
Okay.
And so unless you cover politics, it's impossible to become a rounded journalist. But then again, you can't get obsessed with party politics or personalities. You have to see what politics means, because politics leads to governance. Politics works with democracy. Democracy works with freedom of speech. So all of these things are linked.
So I have to ask you this, 600 guests in Walk the Talk series. I think I've seen half of it, not all of it. But who, according to you, in the Indian amongst the Indian politicians have actually walked the talk, and why do you say so?
Politicians vary from time to time. I'd say Narendra Modi. We had a walk the talk, I think, in 2004, if I remember correctly, that far back. And at that point, most people would not have given him the odds of having become what he did. But I'd like to say this, that I have two national interest articles which are available in this collection that's behind you. One from 2002 and one from 2007. When you get it right, you must flaunt it. When you get it wrong, you can't hide it, right? Because published word is there; it doesn't go away. It's not a tweet that you can delete and hope that nobody has stored it. Published word is published word. So when you get it right, you have to flaunt it. So both in 2002 and 2007, I had said quite emphatically that Narendra Modi will be the leader of the future, not just for the BJP, but at the national level. In fact, 2007, I'd even said that his short-sleeved shirts will become a fashion statement, or short-sleeved kurtas will become a fashion statement. So it's not, I wasn't endorsing him. I wasn't surprised when he rose the way he did. In fact, I'd even forgotten about those two articles. 2002, that is on the eve of his first election, 2007, on the eve of his second election result. In fact, that headline was, if Modi wins on Sunday, right? Because my column appears on Saturday. So the headline was, if Modi wins on Sunday, as he did. So I would say that is a very good example. And then there are people all over, but you have to see them in perspective. And some succeed, some don't succeed. Look at Buddhadev Bhattacharya in your state.
I'm from Bengal. Yes.
I think I had 2 or 3 episodes of Walk the Talk with him. And you could see that he wanted change. He wanted change in Bengal. He wanted change in the left also. And he pushed it. And he pushed it at great political risk to himself. It worked for some time, but ultimately he lost out. And he lost out because he found inadequate conviction within his own party and within his own ideological network. And because he lost out then, remember the issue was over Nandigram and Singhu.
Yes.
Because he lost out then, that you now have the prospect of BJP coming into power, which is the exact opposite of what the left would ever have wanted. So he didn't succeed, but I would say he is a remarkable politician. He's not active right now. So there are people and people and people.
Do you think Mamata Banerjee will walk her talk? Did you have a series or a show with
her
as well?
I had one walk the talk with her in her street, where she said that, Shekhar da, we will do a walk the talk, but we'll have to walk in my street and we'll have that kullad wali chai. So we stopped at the chai shop. That's before Mr. Modi became famous as a chai wala. So we had chai in that kullad.
And what is your vision about Mamata?
Well, I think she is, look, there are only 3 leaders in India who can stand up to Narendra Modi in their own geography. And all 3 have different conditions. So one is Mamata Banerjee. Second is Arvind Kejriwal in Delhi. And third is Amrinder Singh in Punjab. In fact, we are recording on a day that happens to be his birthday as well. So happy birthday, Amrinder, if you're listening. I've known him for a very long time, almost 40 years now. Each one's situation is different. Mamata Banerjee fights Modi quite effectively in the state, and we will see now who wins, but also at parliament level. She still won more seats than the BJP in parliament, although BJP won 942. Whereas Arvind Kejriwal demolishes Modi and BJP in his state assembly elections. Demolishes as in demolishes.
It was a complete takeover.
But at the same time, it's completely demolished at parliament level in Lok Sabha.
Yes.
So you have in Delhi, you have this situation where all 7 go to BJP and 60 plus go to Aam Aadmi Party out of 70 in the Lok Sabha. And Amrinder Singh is different because in that state, BJP is not really such a major threat. But BJP's ally there, Akali Dal, he's finished it. So these are the 3 leaders across 3 age groups. Kejriwal is a couple of years younger than Rahul Gandhi.
As you've spoken about Amrinder Singh, coming to the current status of media, because we are here to also talk about the media, and we have seen you complete at least 35 years in the space with the
40
farm.
plus.
I don't want to say that.
I started working very early, but I wear my age on my sleeve. I'm 63 years old.
I wish you could wear it on your face and personality
No.
also.
And I was fully qualified to go get my vaccine, which I did. Please go ahead.
So, sir, I want to know that with the new farm laws agitation, we have had many protests in this country, but this protest was something different. But not going to the farm new laws, because we have heard your shows around on that subject. But how media was tackled here, how the reporting mistakes were, taken into serious notice by the government, and defamation cases were charged, or a lot of FIRs had been charged. I wouldn't want to name, some of your colleagues and friends have been taken into that note as well. How do you look at this media censoring or media control by the government? And I would like to add, many people I've interviewed have said this is not about BJP anymore. It is about Modi ka BJP and not the Atal Bihari ka Vajpayee ka BJP. So do you think media control?
जो भी है, पर वो एक गाना था ना, साहिर का ही होगा शायद आजकल, साहिर से है ना, जो चला गया उसे भूल जा, वो ना सुन सकेगा तेरी सदा, है ना. तो अब वाजपेयी जी तो चले गए, so you have to look at what the reality is today. So you can't say अरे वाजपेयी जी होते तो ऐसा नहीं होता. वाजपेयी जी तो नहीं है ना. अब गांधी नेहरू चले गए, देश तो चल रहा है ना. You can't say अरे गांधी नेहरू होते तो ऐसा नहीं होता. जो गया वो गया. So you have to connect with the reality of today. And the reality of today is that this government is not particularly tolerant of any criticism. In fact, what they define as criticism is also different. So effectively, this becomes like, if you're not praising us, it is criticism. So there is almost an expectation of praise. Now, I might praise, and I will, and I've been doing it. I praise this government, say, for its handling of the coronavirus crisis in India. From the very beginning, when a lot of the international media was predicting gloom and doom, and in 18 kind of 5% population dying, bodies lying on streets, etc., etc. But that is not enough. At the same time, you have to call them out when they do something wrong. Now, someone like me who supports the farm bills fully, I think the farm bills are very good. This is what India's farming sector needed. But at the same time, I believe the way the government pushed it forward was wrong, because you have to go and reason with the farmer. You have to convince the farmer.
Convince them, yes.
This is for you. This is not something that I'm thrusting down your store, your throat. Take it or leave it. Also, if people are protesting, there is a democratic way of dealing with protests. This is not to say that what some people did at Red Fort was not wrong. It was definitely wrong. They are criminals. They should be punished. And I think many of them are being punished. But to then go after the media like this is self-defeating. In fact, there was an article by our former Foreign Secretary Shyam Saran that we carried yesterday that said that by doing things like this, Modi government is indulging in activity that is self-defeating.
You had written it in one of your articles that media has hit a self-destructive button, especially Arnab Republic versus against other channels. Why was Arnab here considered as the change maker in this scenario? Is there a reason that we have made him the real change maker?
Well, he now runs the most dominant TV networks, right? In English and Hindi, and who knows, in Bangla also. So yes, he's being watched a lot. Because he's watched a lot, and he appeals to one constituency, and that constituency is now the dominant constituency.
Yes.
So usually you will find in the media, people rise if they are appealing to the underdog. But in this case, he's appealing to the top dog. So that is a completely different phenomenon. It's as if in the US, in Trump's times, Fox News was completely dominating all other channels, and they were setting the agenda. But in the US, others were also strong. They were able to counter it. And if they were countering it, they were not facing tax raids or CBI raids or ED raids and things like that, or complete denial of access. There, Trump held a press conference quite often, sometimes every day of the week, and everybody was present, including CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. I think he said, failing New York Times, Amazon, Washington Post. In India right now, with Arnab Goswami, it's like Sayya bhai kotwal ab dar rahe, right? Because the government is behind my back. So that is what makes it a lot more visible. Also, too many other channels in India are following the same pattern now. And I see them across languages and everywhere. So for many of them, it's a simple thing. It's a TRP milta hai.
We had this whole TRP ruckus.
Yeah, but for many of the others, it's also कि TRP भी मिलता है, access भी मिलती है सरकार के साथ और political parties के साथ, और तीसरी बात ये है कि खतरा भी नहीं रहता है.
Yes.
तो आप देखिए कि और खतरा कहीं से आता भी है तो बिग डैडी विल हेल्प, बिग अंकल विल हेल्प. अब देखिए अर्नब के ऊपर भी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से खतरा आया तो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट अभी हेल्प कर रही है. तो ये सब बातें होती हैं. इनसे Arnab has now become a very visible presence.
Yes.
And that is the reason he's now setting the agenda, and he's defining the way the media is polarized or media is responding.
Sir, coming to one question, you have had a journey of, I think you had a longer stint with, or a working stay with India Today, and then it moved to NDTV was a shorter stint, if I may compare that. And then you had editor-in-chief role with Indian Express, which took to another level. Now, what was the need and requirement for you to come up with this entrepreneur role? What was this urge? Was it something waited in your wish list, or you wanted to tick that as your bucket list, like, I want to be an entrepreneur in media someday? How did this happen?
So having worked for so long, and I started working very early. I joined my first job as a full-time journalist. But that was only for about 4 months at a tiny magazine called Democratic World in Delhi, after which I joined the Express. That was in January 1977. So I was still closer to 19 than 20. So I started very early. So by the time I reached the stage when I was, I think, 58 or so, or 59, thereabouts, I think 57 in the Express, I'd already worked more than 30 years. So there was a sense that let's do something more adventurous. In fact, I had worked almost 40 years, because even when I was a journalism student, I was doing freelance writing. I was a stringer for the Times of India covering sports from Chandigarh, which paid you a little money. And also you could have done nothing. That was during the emergency. You couldn't have done very much else. And Daryl De Monte was then the Sunday Review editor of the Times of India. So he published several articles from me, and some money would come in. So I've been working for a very long time. So there was a sense that, been there, done that. Should you spend the next 5 years doing the same thing? It's very comfortable. It's very rewarding. Or try something new. So basically, there are times in your life when you're ripe for mischief, or when you think कि अभी पंगा लेना चाहिए. So this was a bit like, and I think what this has done, this has given me a second innings in my life. So this is my second innings, and I think I'm working.
That is quite inspiring that you call this is second inning, because a lot of people see that 25-year-old career is enough. We don't need more.
So no, that's why you have to renew, because if I carried on, then you're looking at, okay, 2 साल और 3 साल और फिर रिटायर हो जाओ. हमारे को तो गोल्फ खेलनी भी नहीं आती, रिटायर होके क्या करेंगे?
Shekhar as an author or a journalist?
Journalist.
Shekhar would prefer India Today or Indian Express?
Indian Express.
Life as an entrepreneur in media or life as a field reporter in media?
Both are entrepreneurs. Reporters are also entrepreneurs. I say entrepreneurs.
And what would be your interest area to cover? Will it be political journalism or feature story? You've given me a sense, but
political journalism, because you can then do features also.
So, sir, we have this fun segment for you. And since she's joining in, Chetna, are you there on screen for us?
Hello. So, sir, there's this very fun thing that I wanted to try with you. So my question is, if you just wake up tomorrow as Arnab Goswami, what would be your first thing to say or to do?
oh shit, what have I done to myself?
Okay, next
Okay.
person is Mamta Banerjee. If you wake up as her, yeah.
Mamta Banerjee. Oh, how will I live up to her style and her fieriness?
Oh, really? You admire that? I thought she's very simple and basic. She's in Bengal. She's not.
But that is style. It's very easy to have a luxurious style.
Wow, that's very rare. Next one.
Next person is Rajdeep Sardesai.
Oh, how would I get my volume up to that level for a full hour without actually being angry about anything?
I thought you would say, how would I get my facts right? So sorry.
I think his facts are mostly right.
Yes. And then?
Yeah.
So before you bring the photo, so one is left as if you were today to wake up as Atal Bihari Vajpayee. I know you have a admiration for him. I could see that through some of your stories. What would be your thought today looking at India?
If I woke up today as Atal Bihari Vajpayee, my first thought would be, hell, why didn't I set up a proper succession in my party? If you ask me, if I woke up as Atal Bihari Vajpayee tomorrow, what would you think? I'll think, oh, why didn't you also make me 20 years younger?
I think I only have one. Rather, we can go to the caller question. So this question has come from Calcutta. He's Mr. Ajay Chopra, who sent a question for you. Our Prime Minister does not hold press conference. Our government does not have an official spokesperson like the press secretary of US. Do you think this is desirable in a democracy and a republic?
Not at all. In fact, it's things like this that are now leading to India's rating being downgraded on the democracy indices. So it's one thing to keep protesting, but people will judge the quality of a democracy not merely in terms of what kind of critical tweets other people can get away with, but also how transparent you are with sharing information, knowledge, opinion, responding to criticism. How do you respond to criticism? But if you just say, but you see, increasingly that is now the trend among these elected strongmen leaders, that they use denial of access as a weapon, or they use access as a weapon. And this has spread. This has spread to the film business now. Now film stars also decide, if somebody says one little adverse thing, even in the review, to say baat nahi karte. Similarly, you see this coming up in sports as well. If you say one critical thing about a cricket star, he will not talk to you after that. In fact, everybody will know that you are blackballed. Today, a commentator, even if it's Harsha Bhogle, Sanjay Manjrekar, they say anything critical of an Indian star, they get into deep trouble. So these examples have to be set by leaders. And once the top leaders go in a certain way, then leaders in every field also go in that direction.
So you had any question, Chetna, before we wrap this with the one?
Yes, so I had this little question. So being a journalism student and seeing trends in occupation and employment, and we've noticed that you have given this special position to, hiring more and more women in your organization and doing representation work on your end. But we see High Court and Supreme Court making comments about, homosexual marriages and the idea of representation in general, or the idea of period leave, so that women can be, at better position and get better employment opportunities. So my question, I think, to narrow it down would be, do you think that the first step is just giving position to people in marginalized community, or do you think that we need to really buck up and we need to implement a lot of institutional change in order to get better representation?
Well, I think it's difficult for me to give you a larger answer, wider answer. I can only speak with you in terms of experience. In terms of experience, we learned very early on in our lives, particularly during the years of the good era in the history of India today, that today you say gender sensitivity, right? But we were not gender conscious. We were not self-conscious about gender. So whether it was male or female, we looked at a fellow journalist or a colleague as a colleague. And that's how it came up, and that's how we do it now. Now it just so happens that more than 80% of the people we are hiring are women, because they are better qualified, they do better in their tests, they do better in their interviews, and women have taken to journalism in India, in fact internationally also, in all democracies, but in India in particular, because I'd like to believe, I know that there have been problems, and we've had cases of sexual harassment and Me Too, etc. But still, a newsroom is the least unequal of all places. It's not perfect. It was never perfect. But even from the very beginning, when the first women in India's history joined the newsrooms covering mainstream, say Prabha Dutt, that is Barkha's mom, or Tableen Singh, or Madhu Jain, Nina Vyas. These were people who joined earlier. Even when they joined and they were doing mainstream coverage, they would have found more fairness in the newsroom than they might have found in another workplace. So newsrooms, because journalism by its definition tends to be liberal, more open-minded, by no means perfect, because I know if I said that, then you will say, see, recently there was a court judgment in the case of Priya Ramani and MJ Akbar, so I'm not going there. Nothing is perfect, but I'm just guessing as to why women have taken so fondly to journalism.
That's a reply to you, Chetna. You're always curious about that role. Thank you so much, Shekhar sir. But before I let you go, sir, you have to close us or leave us with one nice song that comes to your mind at this moment, that stays with you, a memorable song, and we want you to sing it for us. That's our signature way of allowing our guest to leave us with a nice
song. You should have given me a warning. I can't just...
No, this is the challenge we always have for our journalists. You need to showcase some of
your...
Tell
me, who sung what before this?
Who's son?
Who sung what before this?
Yashwant Sinha.
What did he sing?
It was an old song, so some Rajesh Khanna movie. I don't remember. Even when Rajdeep Sardesai sang, it was some old movie which I can't remember on my tongue.
So what did Rajdeep sing?
I have it. Can you play it, Chetna? It's on our show. Nahi, Zindagi, he always says that I give you as a suggestion, sing it every time.
मैं जिंदगी का साथ निभाता चला गया.
हाँ.
मैं फिक्र को धुएं में उड़ाता चला गया.
Yes. No, there's one more. I forgot. I pass it on to you.
वो मेरे ख्याल साहिर साहब ने लिखा था हम दोनों फिल्म के लिए, देवानंद की फिल्म.
Sahir Lidhani, yes sir, he wrote it.
What is your favorite? What is the song you tell us to always carry in our head?
I think I have a favorite all the time, but since this is the Sahir centenary, we should stick with Sahir or Gulzar. It's one of the two. So there is something that I wrote to my colleagues in the Express when I was leaving. That was from Gulzar, but there was also something that I said to one of my employers when I was leaving that job. I will not tell you who, and that line was from Sahir, which was वो अफसाना जिसे अंजाम तक लाना ना हो मुमकिन, उसे खूबसूरत मोड़ देकर छोड़ना बेहतर, चलो एक बार फिर से अजनबी बन जाएं हम दोनों. ये हमराही का गाना था, 60s की फिल्म थी, वहाँ से बहुत पहले की थी. So instead of one song, I will actually quote two to you, because one is from Sahir Saab that I mentioned to you, and the other is from Gulzar Saab. So I can't not mention one from Gulzar Saab. And I made use of just these lines in my farewell note to my colleagues in the Indian Express after 19 years. And that was a film called Kinara. And this is a song with Jitendra, Dharmendra and Hema Malini. It's a beautiful song. नाम गुम जाएगा. तो उसमें एक stanza है, दिन ढले जहां रात पास हो, जिंदगी की लौ ऊंची कर चलो, याद आए घर कभी दिल उदास हो, मेरी आवाज ही पहचान है, घर याद रहे. So I think these are such wonderful lines.
कितना मीनिंगफुल होता था ना तब का सॉन्ग्स. हमारे पास ऐसे सॉन्ग्स नहीं होते
तब तो वो, लेकिन वो पोइट्री थी ना. That was not just songs, that was poetry. अभी लास्ट वीक मैंने एक कॉलम में भी कोट किया था, वो मथरू सुल्तानपुरी के लिरिक्स थे सगीना फिल्म के. तो उसमें भी था, आग लगी हमरी झुपड़िया में हम गावे मल्हार. तो अब वो, और हमने इसलिए यूज किया कि देखो राजीव गांधी की पार्टी में आग लगी हुई है और वो स्विमिंग कर रहे हैं, कहीं पुशअप करके दिखा रहे हैं, केरला में स्कूल चिल्ड्रन को इम्प्रेस कर रहे हैं. तो ये पोइट्री है पुरानी, जिसको आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. जैसे गुलजार साहब की बहुत पोइट्री है जो आज बहुत रेलेवेंट है. जैसे कि उन्होंने एक फिल्म बनाई थी 1969-70 में, कुछ बनाई थी, मेरे अपने, उनकी पहली फिल्म थी। मेरे अपने में the story was very similar to today. Lots of young unemployed youth, lots of street violence, and some of the songs from that film today are very relevant.